I'm Caroline Miller, your host for Just Read It. We're a Pacific Northwest outfit where local writers dare to review the books of best-selling authors. But every once in a while, we get a celebrity. We lure a celebrity into our midst. And this is one of those days. We have I think, very talented musician turned writer, Brendan Slocum, with us today, author of 2 books, The Violin Conspiracy and The Symphony of Secrets. Welcome, Brendan. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you so much, Caroline. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I've seen your other interviews and I'm terrified because you're such a facile speaker. So you're a speaker, a writer, a musician. We don't have a lot of time, Brendan. I have so many questions, so I'm going to try to be restrained. Your first, you are a violinist, are you not? Tell us a little something about that.
I am. I'm a violinist. I started playing violin at age 9 through a public school music program in North Carolina. I continued through high school. I went to college because of my violin, and I played in several symphonies in North Carolina, DC, and Maryland for a very long time, in addition to being a classroom music teacher turned writer.
So, Brendan, you had this very active career as a musician, and then COVID fell upon us, isolated all of us. You couldn't go out and make public performances. And in your isolation, you just decided to write a novel or a mystery, a very good one, obviously. Is that right?
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's like you mentioned, everything stopped. Everything stopped, me being a working musician, and I needed a creative outlet. I had written I'm going to call it the best science fiction novel that no one will ever read. I'd written it like 20 years ago, and I was flipping through the internet during, COVID, where we were all just kind of sitting on our couches, and I submitted it. I saw an advertisement for selling books in the age of COVID. All right, why not? I'll give it a shot. So once I submitted it, I got a response back that said, this novel is terrible, but you've got a good voice and you should write what you know, and it's not science fiction. So needing that creative outlet, I wrote the first chapter of The Violin Conspiracy, and the rest was history.
It just shows you how fate takes us along paths we do not plan on. Well, I'm going to begin, and I hope our viewers will forgive me, but I'm going to begin with a question from our local writers who we have already reviewed your book for Just Read It. But they were, instead of getting into the plot, which is about a musician who discovers he has a Stradivarius, and right before the Moscow tournament competition, someone steals it. And so the plot is driven by Raekwon, is that his name? The central.
Close enough. Raekwon.
I know people call it. Say again.
Raekwon.
Okay. Macmillan and his sidekick girlfriend Nancy Sellens, right? Did I get that right?
Janice Stevens.
Oh, I thought that was his violin teacher.
Yeah, the sidekick for Ray.
Oh, his girlfriend. I should be more.
Oh, the girlfriend Nicole.
Nicole. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they pursue a search for this Stradivarius, but my guests were really hung up on the characterization of the mother. Raekwon's mother never supported his dreams. Now, there's a perfectly good reason. They're poor, they're African Americans. He thinks he wants to follow music, ha ha ha. But she seemed particularly harsh. She, and in contrast to the grandmother who gave him the Stradivarius, not knowing, who is just as sweet as treacle. Now, I'm going to take a music term. Was that a contrapuntal note in your book?
I love it. I absolutely love it. That was great. Yes. With mom, well, first, one reason I chose to deal with family dysfunction is because I feel like family dysfunction is something that everyone can relate to. Maybe not to the level of Ray's family, but everyone can understand and relate to family dysfunction. So, that's a normal thing. Maybe not to the extent of Ray's family, but it does get pretty intense with his family. And in terms of his mother, you mentioned, she wasn't very supportive of his career choice. Maybe, just it could have been that she was just a nasty, greedy person, or maybe that's the only way. By discouraging Ray, that's the only way she knew how to protect him. She really didn't want him to be disappointed because she'd never seen anyone who looks like him be successful in the field that he was trying to pursue. So, rather than just say, no, you can't do that, she was just doing her best to discourage him so he didn't get disappointed. It's a, you make the choice with mom's character, but the intent is, I'll leave it up to the reader to decide, what the intent was.
Well, my audience, my critics thought that, she was, one of them mentioned that she was squashing dreams to protect him, and then in destroying or attempting to destroy him as a consequence. And I think we were all kind of curious, was how conscious was that, or was it just simply having been raised in poverty herself, she just thought dreams are dangerous? So
I think that's a good summation. I think it's probably a combination. It's a good mix of both of those.
As for the family's greed, well, you can understand. Oh gosh,
it was $10 million bucks.
$50,000 violin, and we'll take the several million.
Exactly.
Practical people. Okay, now as I watched your other interviews, you mentioned several times that much of this book really comes out of your own gut experience, that you're really recording in part what you've lived. I don't know if anybody's given you a Stradivarius, but other than that, I want to ask you, because I do a little blog writing where I use my friends and the things I see, and I always have to think about that. So I wanted to ask you, did writing your personal history constrain you in any way about what you put in, or did you censor yourself in any way, or did you let it all hang out?
A great question. In the beginning, my first, as I was starting to write, I did question whether or not I should put some of those events in. No, not because I was embarrassed or anything. I was just, I really didn't know how they would be accepted, or if people would even believe it. Because in my past experiences, when I would tell my friends and, this is what happened, I would always get the same response. You're exaggerating. Oh, it's really not like that. Oh, you just misunderstood. So it was more a question of whether or not I was going to get the validation. This is my experience. And for someone, if I put it out there for the world to see and someone to say, no, it's not really like that, I don't know that I would have been able to handle that, that invalidating sense that sometimes people give you when they don't really understand your experiences. But the more I wrote, the more I realized, it's really important for me to put this out there, not only for myself, but for other people who've experienced similar things. and it truly was cathartic, and it really was getting that validation was fantastic. And once I put it out there, I never looked back.
And that's taking the risk in art is always there.
Absolutely.
You raised the word catharsis because um, you're a musician, and now you're a writer, and uh, they are two demanding careers, and they're sort of competitive, but you seem to see, and am I wrong in this, that the music had a catharsis for you in your life, even though it was a competitive field. Field, and I just wondered, is that correct? Did you're competing to get your voice in the air, but it seemed to be also a very cathartic experience. Did I get that right?
No, I think you're spot on there. With all of the music stuff that I've done, it is very competitive and in a good way.
Mhm.
Um, in my opinion, the competition that I had, with my peers, or if I was actually entering, a judged competition, it just made me better. It made me
Mhm.
want to do better. And one good thing about being a musician that has totally helped me in my writing is learning how to take critique, learning how to take criticism.
Mhm.
For when I'm taking lessons and I'm playing something, my teacher, this wasn't very good. You need to do more of this, less of this, do this. I totally get it, and I accept it, and I take everything that I can use and I discard everything else, and I let someone read. I used to be terrified to let people read my stuff, but now it's like, okay, I understand that this is for you, the consumer. And if there's something that you don't like, let me know. I can do something different. I can give you more of this, more of that. I never take anything personally. I learned to stop doing that years ago.
I'd say that's the key to success. If you're too tender, don't go into the arts.
Don't do it.
You grow stronger by learning the criticism. But now, tough question, because, well, COVID did you a favor or disfavor. You're now on a two-track successful careers, but they're very different. Obviously, music is community and working with others and so forth. And writing, at least my writing, is very solitary. It's a very lonely slog until you get something out, and then you say to someone, do you like this? So can you comment about that? And are you feeling a pull of one lifestyle above another?
You hit it right on the head, Caroline. It is writing is it's a solitary event. I really enjoy, after the work is done, going out and meeting people who have read the book, even people who don't like it. I enjoy engaging with people, tell me why you didn't like it. What did you not like about it? Or, I enjoy hearing that kind of stuff. And it's yes, it's very different. And the pull that I get, I totally miss being able to play in, a symphony with my friends every week. Unfortunately, because of all of the touring and the writing that I'm doing, I had to leave the orchestra that I was a member of for 17 years. So I do miss that part, and I've not quite found the balance yet. I haven't quite found out how to balance the two. I play whenever I can, but just not to the level that I was, just even a year ago. But the writing, in terms of writing itself, I view it like I do when I'm practicing. I know what my goal is. I set the goal, and I usually do it at the same time every day. And I know, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And if this is not done really well, I'll make sure that I focus on that next time, whatever aspect it is that I want to, push forward with. But they really are parallel, and I'm really happy that I've got the discipline to, I used to practice every day for 3.5 hours, and that totally set me up for writing. It's like, I do it at the same time every day, even if I
Mhm.
don't feel like it. It's like, yeah, I got to knock out 2,500 words today, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, but I do it, and that consistency really helps. And I learned that from being a musician.
Nothing more terrifying than the blank page. But it looks like you've already sort of consciously or unconsciously made a decision to definitely make writing a space that sometimes may cut into your music. Well, all right, maybe you're just what do they call a Renaissance man, and I wish you the luck. I hope you can do both. It sounds so wonderful. Now, about about the violin conspiracy, you said you wrote it because I'm reading here your words, so excuse me for not looking in your face. You wanted to write a page turner, and certainly the violin conspiracy is that. And I wondered, could you give us a little peek as to who your mentors were? Who did you turn to learn how to write? You
I
decided
was
to write a book during COVID, and then you go off and you write, a bestseller. How did you do that? Who did you turn to for that?
I was very, very fortunate. When I was in high school, I had the same English teacher for both 11th and 12th grade English, and she always encouraged me to write. I mean, she just I would always be encouraged, just write more, write that, and so that was implanted early. And when I was in college, I took the regular English courses, and I can say this now because plenty of time has passed. I've been out of college for several decades. I used to write some of my friends' papers, and they would actually get A's. So I was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. Um, my thing is I like to get feedback, any type of feedback from anyone. I often encourage people to let people read your work.
Mhm.
And most of the time I get, well, it's not done yet. It's not ready yet. It's not good. It's like, well, it's the only way it's going to get better is if you get feedback. And again, going back to the whole being a musician thing, I'm accustomed to feedback. I let everyone read my stuff. I let people who are not interested in the subject matter read it. Tell me what you think. And I also work very closely with my agent and my editor. We bounce ideas off of each other often, and which we have arguments over which direction we should go. And sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but we
Artistic
do
privilege.
have. Yeah, we definitely have open discussions about the direction that things are going, and if things are working and if things are not working. I am open to taking any bit of advice or critique or criticism that I get, and I really truly feel like that input really helps me with my writing. You need more of this, you need less of this. Where do you think this is going? What would you like to accomplish by, and I take it all in. I take it all in and I use it all.
Let the amateurs out there who are quivering in their desktops to the strength is in admitting the information. But I wish I had a ruler, Ray. I'd slap your knuckles, because I used to be an advanced writing teacher, and that you were writing under papers. Oh, how awful. On the
That
other,
was like 30 years ago. It's
how
okay.
much better you got because of their laziness. So,
I
oh,
was doing him a favor.
well, I wasn't going to ask this question to the end because I have got so many other, but let me just point out that you do have a third career, which is a very serious one, which is as a teacher. Have you had to let go of that?
Unfortunately, I just let my last few students go this summer. I did it for as long as I could, but again, with all the traveling and the writing and the appearances and everything, it was just not fair to my students. It was so inconsistent. I love teaching them, and I've started most of them on the instruments that they're playing, like piano and violin and guitar, and the inconsistency was just, it wasn't fair to them. And I told them you're going to be much better off if you have a teacher you can have every single week instead of me coming in once a month. That was hard, and it saddens me because I love my students and I love seeing them progress, but right now I'm just unable to do it all. I just wish there was another 12 hours in the day.
Well, at least, Brendan, you're respecting that teaching is an art form that also deserves interest and attention. So
Right.
I pledge, I'll take back the ruler. I won't hit you with a ruler. All right. Now, I want to get on to the meat of the second book, which I just stumbled on. I don't know why I didn't notice that you had written a second book, because I enjoyed the first one so much, because who doesn't love a page turner, but I think you lied to us. Or maybe you don't know what you have done. And by that, I mean the second book is completely complex and structured differently than the first. You have two stories going along. One that takes place in the early 1900s, and the other that takes place modern times, correct?
Yes.
And you have these characters, two sets of featured characters. So first of all, let me just ask you simply, how did you, as a page turner devotee, so you say, how did you decide to make it more complex? Why did you? You could have turned the story of Josephine, who is a savant, as well as I think you called her autistic. She's a savant, and her relationship, we'll get into it, with Delaney, as a single novel. Why the two levels?
Good question. Because in the very beginning, everything started with Freddie. Freddie was the first character that I came up with, and I knew that I wanted to have a story with a character who was living with autism. That was important to me because my nephew lives with autism. My best friend's brother lives with autism. I've taught students who live with autism, and I hadn't seen too many books with people living with autism that were written in a positive manner. So I really wanted to do that. I wanted that to be my focus. But I just felt like the dual timelines, I could do so much more. I think both storylines are really interesting. And to me, just being able to jump back and forth, I love stuff like that. I love reading stuff like that. I love going right up to the edge and then someone yanking the carpet right out in front of me and going to something else and then getting revved up and revved up. And then, oh my gosh, to me, it just doubles. It's double the excitement. And I thought that would be an interesting way. And I really wanted to see if I could do that effectively. That was pretty much, I sampled it a little bit in the Violin Conspiracy with some of the flashbacks, but I mean, I just enjoy, writing the dual timelines because you get twice as much excitement and action. And, especially if those stories are parallel. They really are parallel stories. And it was just so much fun to do. And to me, it just broadens everything, and it gives the story much more life if you can view it from two different viewpoints with the present and the past. I just thought it was fun.
Okay, I get what you felt that you were moving the momentum of the story along by having the two storylines. I get it, but as an English teacher, Bern Hendricks, your your central character in the modern story, and Ebony, who is a computer person. They're perfect characters for a page turner. We don't really know a lot about them. Byrne is a devotee of Frank Delaney's, Frederick Delaney's work. He's something of an expert. He works with the Delaney Institute. And then they find this third manuscript, the Red Ring that was lost. And they hire, the Delaney Institute hires Byrne to check out the history. But as he does, he thinks, oh, he didn't write this, and he begins to doubt. And he brings in Ebony, who is an expert on the computer, and the two of them, we don't know much more about them. So they are characters who are driven by circumstances, follow this bead, follow this bead, follow this, or, hint. But I think you did something quite different in the second story. Delaney is a hack musician selling music at the turn of the century for a music store. He has desires and dreams. Who among us doesn't? And he meets this street person, Josephine Reed. She literally lives on the street. And he discovers, if I may just take a moment, he discovers that she's a savant. I mean, she isn't just autistic. I mean, music has color for her. She's brilliant. And so what happens is a good intention. He starts to bring her into his house. He takes her off the street. He gets her a job. He feeds her, but then he steals her work. And when the work becomes successful, he is torn between wanting to push her out of his life, yet needing her. And she, who's never faced kindness, develops this attachment, which now she can't understand why he's pushing her away. Well, he's standing in the spotlight, So I came across a quote by a Washington Post critic, and I'm going to put you on the spot. The Washington Post critic said of your voice, Maya, that you deliberately sacrificed Josephine's character to maintain the book's pace. And my feeling is liar, liar, pants on fire, because those two characters have tragic flaws. What moves them in the story isn't chasing the clues. It is their own internal needs, okay? Josephine is a tough woman. She allows a man into her life and loves the comfort and is betrayed by it. And Frederick starts out well, but he becomes a monster. I think I wrote to you, I thought he reminded me of Dorian Gray, and Josephine reminded me of Madame Bovary, a woman with more talent than society could endure, and certainly from a minority person. So while Madame Bovary is dealing with class, she's dealing with being a minority. Okay, so I want you to address this, and in the end of these differences, and were I conscious or did Josephine lure you? Did she entrance you to develop her more than you thought you were going to? Well, I want to know who's right, the Washington Post critic or me. Your state.
Well, since I am here talking to you, Caroline, you're automatically going to be right. Of course you're right.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
No, I'm really happy you said good intentions. Freddie definitely had good intentions, and good intentions. He really truly did. And when I talk to people about Freddie's character, they all say the same thing. Oh, he was a lowlife. He was this. He was that. I personally think Freddie was a nice guy who just got caught up. He had to keep it going, and it just got to be too much. Um, Josephine's
She,
character. I'm sorry.
she allowed him to live his dream.
Yes,
Oh, go ahead.
and I think in a sense he did the same thing for her.
Woohoo.
Because she would have had nothing. She was a Black woman in the 20s with a neurodivergent condition. She had three strikes going against her. Freddie really did open up his home. He opened his heart to her. He gave her something she never would have been able to have on her own ever. And those experiences that he gave her, I mean, that was wonderful. That was very, very giving of Freddie, and it was just a testament to his character. He wanted Josephine to be happy. And in terms of her character development, she actually started off as a minor character, but then, I think the plot
He's seduced you.
yeah, absolutely. She just kind of, in the very beginning, Josephine really was going to be just a minor background character, and it was going to be all about Freddie Delaney. But then, the story just took a direction of its own, and I had to follow it, and I think that it turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. We learned so much about Freddie and the type of person he is, and like you mentioned, good intentions. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. And Josephine, she was such a complex character because she gained so much, but she lost so much at the same time. The happiness that she got, it was, at the she lost as much as she got. And it just kind of happened that way. It wasn't okay, just it was a very tragic situation, but I'm happy that Josephine found some happiness at some point during the story, because I think both she and Freddie were very happy together, and I do believe that he loved her and she loved him.
I believe that too. That's why I slapped the Washington Post guy in the face. So
Thank you. I'm glad you did it. I can't do it.
what came out of love, as so often happens in Wuthering Heights, and so is their needs overwhelmed them and they destroyed each other.
Mhm.
I call that. I have to say to you, Brendan, if you aren't careful, you might wander into literature and not page turners. So beware, beware. I think you've been lured by a woman of talent and insight that you created. So beware, beware. She is your product.
Okay.
All right. Um, I wanted to ask you, we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you in another review. I'm reading again my little clip notes here, my cheat notes. Somebody said that, you said that the book was originally titled The Composer's Last Score. Now, I know book titles are important in marketing and so forth. How did it get changed, and why did it get changed?
I personally thought The Composer's Last Score, I thought it was a totally fine title. It fit the story, I believe. But the marketing team, for my whole team, I think they felt that the alliteration just worked a little bit better. And in retrospect, I have to agree. Symphony of Secrets just kind of rolls off the tongue a bit better, and it kind of makes you want to. Composer's Last Score, you're like, okay, is this a football game, or what's going on? But with Symphony of Secrets, I think it just hits everything. The symphony being the music section, secrets, there's a ton going on that no one really knows about, but we've got to discover. I think they nailed it with the change in title.
Well, I raise it because, oddly enough, after, at least in my experience, after I've written a book, I'm so exhausted. I don't care what you call it, and yet it really is an important part of the book and not to be overlooked. So, your experience, I wanted you to share with the audience, because we do have writers in the audience, and um, I fought very hard with one woman who wrote a title that has been used over and over again. And I kept saying, don't use that one. You'll get buried, in the list of people looking for you, you'll get buried. She didn't listen to me, and I don't know how well her book sells, but titles are important. It's part of the writing, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. And the title is always the last thing that that's the last thing I'm thinking about. I let the story pretty much dictate what it's going to be called. For Violin Conspiracy, I didn't even have a working title until I finished the manuscript. And it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to call this. What am I supposed to do? And my agent actually came up with Violin Conspiracy. And I was like, okay, fine. We'll leave it with that until they change it to something else. And they loved it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, from a writer's point of view, it's like a woman who's gone through 12 hours of difficult childbirth. She turns to her husband, you name the damn thing, That's my feeling. All right, well, Brendan, we have to bring this to a close, but boy, has this been fun, as I knew it would be. You have a new book coming out. Can you give us just a teeny tiny preview of when and what?
I do. My next novel is being published in early 2025. I'm almost done with the first manuscript. I'm almost done with the first draft.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, I've got a title already. It's called The Dark Maestro. It's going to involve a cellist, witness protection, illegal organ harvesting, and a comic book vigilante. I'm going to make it work.
Well, that's the challenge, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Because after all, what is genius but the ability to see connections between disparate things and to let the reader see these new connections? So
I hope so. It makes perfect sense in here.
We shall see. And maybe there's another Josephine luring in those pages lurking. Maybe we'll see. Anyway, I want to thank you for such fun, for being with us this afternoon. What a treat, what a treasure. And I'm glad that I know more than the Washington Post critic. I'll just take that benefit right now. And we will look forward to seeing your new book, Brendan, because wow, what COVID did for the world. Thank you so much for being a guest with us today. What fun. And to my audience, please come back, because Brendan may show up again. You never know. And we'd love to have you back. We don't sell your name, so subscribe, because we're only on 6 times a year. Come in. And before I leave, Brendan, if I may tailcoat on your fame and fortune, I have a small memoir coming out. By the time this airs, it will be out, called Getting Lost to Find Home. It's a memoir, 4 years of my ill-begotten, ill-spent youth. More on that later, but the important thing is that you look for Brendan's new book. Again, the title is, at the moment,
The Dark Maestro.
Oh man, I'm going to go for that one. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. And Brendan, what a treat. And that's it. Just time for Just Read It.